What's up everyone, Ankur Nakbal here from Teachable, and this video is about partnership marketing. How do you think about joint ventures? How do we use other people, our friends, our connections in order to help promoting and marketing our course? So through this entire lecture, you'll hear me referring to the word joint venture, or JV for short. What is a joint venture? A joint venture is a partnership between you and another person or another company to strike a relationship where there's value exchange between both parties. Now, this might sound like a very formal word, but a joint venture is nothing more than collaboration with someone else where you help them out and they help you back. When it comes to promoting your online course, generally most joint ventures are structured in such a way where it has one party having incredibly valuable content. Maybe it's a valuable blog post, a valuable course, or something where they create very, very good content, and the other party having an audience hungry for that content. So it's almost like, one person has the course, the other person has the audience, and by working together, both parties benefit. That's the big underlying, not an assumption, the big underlying logic behind a joint venture is both parties have to receive value, and you want to make it so that both parties feel good about receiving that value, so it's a good joint venture versus someone feeling like they might have been taken advantage of. So in this lecture, I'm going to walk you through the 8 kinds of collaborations we have done at Teachable that I recommend you explore as you think about how you market and distribute your online course or your lead magnet. So the first kind is the simple affiliate joint venture, and this is, at its core, incredibly simple. All it means is you give away your course to someone with an audience or whatever your product is, and they receive a commission for selling it. So for example, we did a partnership with Melissa Griffin where she sold our Black Friday bundle, and in return she received 50%. This is the easiest kind of relationship to set up. All you can do is, for your Teachable course, find someone and mark them as an affiliate on your Teachable school. They get a unique link. Every time they send that link out to their audience, their email list, and someone buys, you give them 50%. This is the most basic kind of joint venture, just standard affiliate marketing. That's all you have to do, right? Recruit someone with a relevant audience. You might be able to find them. They might, have a magazine or a trade publication or a YouTube channel or some source where they have an audience of people you want to get to. You use Teachable to give them a unique tracking link. Generally, what I recommend is offering 50%. You can, mess with that and give them more or less, and then have them send an email to their list. And before you know it, they will generate sales for you. You've generated the content. They generate the audience. Both parties are happy. The second kind of joint venture is, what we call the software company joint venture. This is what we did when we were getting started with webinars and, joint venture webinar partnerships. What we did is we partnered up with Noah Kagan and the team at SumoMe, where we built a very, very high quality webinar and we delivered it to their audience. And in that webinar, what we did is we convinced all of the SumoMe people to upgrade their SumoMe plan. So it's really interesting and different from traditional webinars because we were not receiving email lists. We were not receiving any money. We just went to their audience and helped convert their audience from their free plan to a paid plan by giving, a free month of Teachable as well as some content. So it's really, really interesting when you think about it, right? Because we didn't get any money from that deal. We still went there and converted their audience from free to paid, but it still made a lot of sense for us because, well, one, we were new to, doing webinars, so we wanted to have a few examples and case studies, but because SumoMe featured us to their entire email list of over 100,000 people, it resulted in our single highest day and our single highest week of signups, even though we never actually got an email list from it or got money from it. So this can be a great way to get started is go to a company, go to an audience and offer to convert their audience to paying subscribers. Either it's a software company or, even if it's a marketer with a great list, think about going to them saying, hey, can I do a joint venture webinar to your audience? I'm not going to sell them something. I'm just going to help them buy your course by virtue of giving away something for free on my end. And if you go to someone that's, got a bigger audience than you, that still will make sense. And it's a great way to get your feet wet with joint venture webinars. So quick how-to: convince a partner to bring you to their audience for a free, purely value-add workshop. So the trick with making this work is you're not asking for anything. You're not asking for money. You're not asking for an email list. You're offering to go in, help them convert their audience, making it likely for someone who might have a larger audience than you, larger reach than you, to still bring you in. What you do is you keep dropping references of the product that they are selling. And at the end of the webinar, you say, hey, if you buy this person's product, like in this case it was SumoMe, I will give you a bonus from my end. So it works really, really well. Not enough people do it, and we're finally just getting started with, partnerships and webinars. This is something I highly, highly recommend as a way of getting your feet wet. Now, the third kind of joint venture is the grown-up version of that. It's what we call the default Teachable joint venture. This is probably the joint venture webinar that you're familiar with. And an example was a partnership with Brian Harris, where we delivered a high-quality training to his audience, except there at the end of the offer, we offered a year of Teachable, a couple of Teachable courses, along with a Brian course, and created a joint bundle offer, and then split that 50-50. So this is the kind of standard joint venture webinar. A lot of times what you'll do is you'll start off with the other kind of joint venture webinar and then move on to the default one where both parties split it 50-50. So what happens is you are brought into someone else's audience. So if you have the content, what you're doing is you've created the webinar, you deliver the webinar, and you have some kind of premium offering to sell. And the other person simply sends an email to their list, invites you, and gets, a 50% check for doing that. So this is one of the highest leveraged, joint venture structures there is, because it makes sense from both parties. The person inviting you does very little work, but they open up their audience. So for that, they get 50%. You coming in do a lot of work. You prepare a really good presentation. You have a course to give away as part of the offer. You do all the work convincing and selling, and you split it 50-50. Now, you want to be careful about a few things as you're doing this, because there's some things that you want to discuss ahead of time so people know how this entire thing is structured. Because a lot of times when you want to do a joint venture webinar, people have slight differences in what they perceive. So I want you to discuss these things ahead of time so there's no awkwardness after. One of the things that comes up is you want to be explicitly clear who gets ownership of the email list. So when when Brian invited people to this webinar, we had to discuss ahead of time who would get the email addresses. Would Teachable get all email addresses? That is everyone that registered for the webinar. Would Teachable only get email addresses for people that show up, or maybe only email addresses for people who end up attending? So you want to discuss this ahead of time, as well as who is the one doing the follow-up sequence, because that's where all the sales are generated. The other thing you want to think about is what is the host's responsibility. So if Brian is inviting us, is he going to be around during the webinar, or is he just going to introduce us? Is he even going to show up? We generally recommend having the host present during the entire workshop, introducing you, making insightful comments to the entire presentation, and during the offer, like co-selling with you. It's so much more effective when you have the person hosting, the person whose audience it is, also in the webinar, kind of backing you up and helping to sell alongside with you. That alone can end up doubling your conversion rates really often. As I said, you want to be clear as to who is responsible for sending the follow-up emails, because that's where about 50% of the sales are made. And again, my recommendation is the person whose audience it is, it's always more effective when they send the follow-up emails. So for Brian to send the follow-up email saying, guys, you want to buy Teachable and here's why, is a lot more convincing than Teachable saying, hey guys, you really want to buy Teachable. So discuss these things ahead of time, at least initially. Eventually, I want you to standardize these terms, and every time you structure a joint venture deal, send the same Google document to multiple people so they know exactly how all of this is going to work. Now, the fourth kind of joint venture that you might not even think of as a joint venture, but I want to bring up here anyways, is a podcast. Ultimately, a podcast where you go on another podcast host's show and share insightful stories and stuff is a kind of joint venture, because again, you are bringing content, right? You are bringing valuable content, they're bringing an audience, and both parties win. Of course, this is less impactful than any of the other stuff because there's no direct response funnel attached to this, but this is still, a different kind of joint venture that you should start doing with some kind of lead magnet referenced either in the show notes or at the end of the podcast to start collecting email addresses and getting people on your list. So reasons to do a podcast is if you have a good story to share, just say yes. It takes such little time, and it's a fun way to spend your time as well. As I said, do not expect it to move the dial quickly, but it all starts to add up when you get on a few good shows. And once you prove to be a good guest, once you have appearances on good podcasts, you get invited to more podcasts, just making future appearances easier to happen. A lot of people ask, right, how do I actually get on podcasts? Well, one is you don't always wait to be invited. Podcast hosts are always looking for interesting guests. So I would reach out to people saying, look, I would love to be a guest on your podcast, and here's why. And then additionally tell them, look, I'll also help you share your show, because a lot of people are looking for promotion for their podcast. So if you reach out saying, look, put me on your show, I want to help you promote it, chances are, you will start to make that happen. And once you've established yourself to be a good guest, you'll get invited a lot more on other shows as well. But the whole lesson, the takeaways from this section are, one, don't be passive about this. You want to be active. You want to actively be looking for opportunities. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Secondly, this is not going to move the dial incredibly quickly, but it starts to add up, and it's still a net positive that you probably want to always be doing. Okay, the fifth kind of partnership, the fifth kind of joint venture is the opposite of what we did with Noah Kagan and Sumo Me, which is the reverse software JV, where basically we brought in Mariah, for instance, and she did the exact same thing, where she helped convert free Teachable users to paying Teachable users by delivering a really, really high quality workshop to our audience. And we only invited our free subscribers. Mariah gave a really high quality presentation to our free subscribers and offered them a premium version of her webinar Rockstar course if they upgraded from a free to paid Teachable plan. So it worked out really well for me. And this is, it's exactly the opposite of the other kind of joint venture, where if you have a large free audience, find someone else to come in and tell them, look, I just want you to help me convert the free people on my list to buy my course by giving something else inside that bundle, the way Mariah gave Webinar Rockstar to help people convert to the paid version of Teachable. Again, you want to discuss, ownership of email addresses. You want to make it very clear whether the workshop is going to everyone on the list or only a specific segment. So for instance, Mariah's workshop only went out to the free users on Teachable, and we want to make that clear so she knows, or whoever else knows, exactly which audience they're reaching. And you want to make it clear if this is going to be reciprocated down the line, because a lot of people will do this, but they want the opposite as well. They want you to come in and help convert their people as well. And that's a big part of all joint ventures, right? Like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Just reciprocating is incredibly important. So you want to discuss these things ahead of time before bringing in someone to help convert your audience. Now, the sixth kind of joint venture, and again, this might not be something you think of immediately when you think joint ventures, is a content joint venture where you bring in someone else to write a guest post on your blog, because ultimately, as a lot of you that are writing know, creating a lot of high quality content all the time does get exhausting. There's only a limited number of hours in the day, and you're always balancing different priorities. And that's where quality guest post contributors can come in. They can really, really help move the dial by writing the same kind of high quality blog post you would, except they're doing it. So you get quality content for your blog, they get more exposure, and both parties win. Your blog has more traffic, does better, they get introduced to a new audience. And it works really well both ways, right? Even if you're just getting started out, if you don't have a high traffic blog, you probably want to come in from the other side and find someone with a relevant audience and pitch them a high quality piece of content. You want to discuss explicitly, if you're talking to them and you're going into another audience, whether you're allowed to put in a content upgrade, which means within the blog post you have something that says, okay, to get the resource referenced here, click this link, and that in turn goes to an email opt-in form that helps you get some people from the original email list onto your email list. So I would recommend, doing guest blog posts wherever you can, on the assumption that they let you leave a content upgrade in, because that way a good guest blog post can get you, 100 to 200 people on your list, and it's so reproducible. When you do it once, do it again. It can, a lot of people have used this to build their first 1,000 subscribers and more. Now, the seventh kind of joint venture is called the course interview joint venture, and we talked about this a little bit in other channels, but this is where you partner in with someone, you do a joint venture with someone where you bring them into your course by interviewing them. So what we did, for instance, with David Kadavy is I interviewed David for our course $1 Million Instructor. We never paid him for it. He gave us an hour of his time. I asked him everything I wanted to know about, how he runs his course business, how he built his first video course, how he sold his course, and I got all of the advice, all of the information that in turn made the course much better. It made our course much more powerful. And what David got was two things, right? First, he got the ability to share his knowledge and be seen as an expert, but additionally, he got an exposure to a brand new audience. And then finally, we also offered him an affiliate link so you could make 50% of the sale of the course. So it worked out really, really well in many different ways. I personally loved the fact that, money did not trade hands in a direct way. Like, it was more like, you come in, you give us all this information, and we'll promote you to an audience. Optionally, additionally, it made him more likely to be an affiliate for the course, because now his content, his material was part of our course. So when we offered him an affiliate link, he was much more likely to say yes, versus if we had just said, hey, you want to be an affiliate, when he's like, I don't even know this course. Now this course is actually a part of him. He's put in time and effort into the course. So he's much more likely to be an affiliate. And ultimately, it made our course so much more valuable by virtue of having experts like David inside it. So this is another way of a joint venture promotion I want you to think about. It's not intuitive, but the idea of bringing in other experts whenever you're putting together any kind of content opportunity, like an online course, featuring them heavily, and then giving them an affiliate link. So this is one of the secret type of joint ventures that people don't talk about that has worked really, really well for Teachable. The last and final kind of joint venture I'm going to cover in this lecture, because I know there's already so much information here, so much content packed in here. So this is the last one I'm going to cover, and this is a little advanced. You don't have to do this. This is something we've done at Teachable because, we did so many joint ventures, we decided to get fancy. We held what we called an online summit in November 2015. And this is a really, really interesting kind of joint venture, because what we did is we brought in experts like Brennan Dunn, where we invite people like Brennan to come teach a webinar or a workshop to our audience. So we promote the summit. People like Brennan come in, host live workshops to our audience over a set time frame. We promote the event. Brennan comes in and delivers a really valuable workshop to live attendees. And at the end, what we did is we built a bundle of not just Brennan's course and Teachable, but there's one bundle of Brennan and 7 other people's courses and Teachable, because we had 7 people delivering webinars in 1 week. All of them decided to contribute a premium course to this bundle. So the offer got super, super strong, because all of a sudden you had 1 year of Teachable along with 7 amazing courses, all in this one massive packed bundle. It converted absurdly well, like nothing we've ever seen before. But this is an advanced move. There's a lot of stuff that we did here that, I can't share in this lecture. It gets too advanced. But there's a lot of cool stuff we did to make it this successful. But it worked absurdly well when you had all of these great people contributing their best content in one single offer. So what people could do is, with buying 1 year of Teachable, they got 7 premium courses. And what you'll notice here is this is really ultimately a combination of a lot of different joint ventures already described in this section. And that's what it really comes down to, right? I want this video to be inspiring, not only because of the specific advice it's given you, but to inspire other ways of collaborating with people. Ultimately, no matter what channel you might use, it might be something like a giveaway too. If you can collaborate with other people and take inspiration from what's come up over here, because all of this stuff is very similar. It's always about providing value to other people and help, different people using their audiences to help each other. So if you can learn something from here, it might not be the specifics that are important, but the inspiration in how do you actually do that I want you to start thinking about how you can start leveraging partnerships to market your course right now. Partnerships are the easiest way to start building an audience, especially if you're building it from scratch. So I hope this lecture helps. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments.